This is the cardiovascular system. The CV system is a heart and circulatory system, and it circulates blood around the body from the heart. It works 24/7 unconsciously during daily tasks and sport and performance. It performs many vital functions by pumping blood around the body, as blood keeps your body running so you can do daily activities, because without it you would die. The 6 main functions are nutrient delivery, waste product removal, transporting oxygen, clotting, protection from infection, and thermoregulation. Nutrient delivery is when nutrients such as glycogen, glucose, fats, and proteins are delivered to the muscles. Nutrients are used by the muscles to give them energy to contract, and when doing activity that requires a lot of muscular contraction, having lots of nutrients is vital as it gives muscles more energy, allowing them to contract. The CV system also removes waste products such as carbon dioxide and lactic acid. Carbon dioxide builds up during aerobic respiration and diffuses from the blood into the lungs and then can be removed when you exhale. Lactic acid builds up during anaerobic respiration and is removed by the blood flowing through the muscles. During exercise, the 2 waste products have a higher build-up, so the CV system has to work harder to remove them. Another function of the CV system is transporting oxygen. When exercising, the muscles need lots of oxygen to work, and blood carries the oxygen to the working muscles as oxyhemoglobin. The heart then pumps the blood out through the arteries to transport it around the body to the muscles. Another function is clotting. Blood clots prevent you from bleeding too much, because it is dangerous if you have too much blood loss. When you have a cut, red blood cells can gather around the wound, causing a clot so the cut can stop bleeding. Another function of the CV system is protection from infection. Blood contains white blood cells, which are used to fight off diseases or illnesses. They can detect infections and kill them either by enveloping them or producing antibodies. The antibodies can stick to the infection to kill it, and after that they remain in the blood to make you immune from that infection. The last function is thermoregulation. This is a process of keeping the body temperature at a certain heat. The CV system helps to keep the body within the right temperature range so it can function properly. When you're too hot, vasodilation happens, which is where the vessels send blood to the skin surface by widening, where heat can then be lost through the skin. If it is too cold and you need to warm up, vasoconstriction happens, which is where the vessels constrict to keep the blood in the core, to keep your vital organs warm. There are 2 circulatory systems, which are the pulmonary and systemic. Both carry blood around the body, but to different parts. The pulmonary system carries blood rich in CO2, and that is deoxygenated to the lungs and then back to the heart. Deoxygenated blood is delivered to the right atrium of the heart through the superior vena cava. Blood from the right atrium then goes through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. 70% of it is by passive filling, which is where the pressure of the blood fills up to push the valve open. The last 30% is then sent through to the ventricle by atrial contraction, which is where the atrium contracts to force the blood through. The right ventricle then contracts, shutting the tricuspid valve closed to prevent any backflow, and ejecting the blood through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. Once the blood is pumped out of the right ventricle, it travels through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. When the blood goes through the lungs, it comes out as oxygenated and travels down to the left atrium. This is a systemic system. Oxygenated blood returning from the lungs goes to the left atrium through the pulmonary vein. 70% of the blood then flows through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle by passive filling. The left ventricle then contracts so the rest of the blood fills the left ventricle. The left ventricle then contracts, shutting the bicuspid valve closed to prevent any backflow, and ejecting the rest of the blood through the aortic valve and into the aorta artery. The aortic artery carries the blood to around the body to the muscles and organs. The blood uses capillaries so it can diffuse into the muscles so they can use the oxygen. The blood is now deoxygenated so it travels through the vena cava into the right atrium of the heart. This is the anatomy of the heart. Your heart acts as a double pump or a dual pump. The first pump carries deoxygenated blood to your lungs, where it unloads carbon dioxide and picks up oxygen. It then delivers oxygenated blood back to your heart. The second pump delivers oxygenated blood to every part of your body. The heart wall is made up of 3 layers, which are the myocardium, endocardium, and epicardium. The endocardium lines the inside of the heart and is the inner layer. The myocardium is the middle layer of the heart and is the thickest layer, made up of cardiac muscle. It's myogenic, meaning it contracts on its own and it doesn't fatigue unless there is no oxygen. The epicardium covers the outside of the heart and is the outer layer. The heart sits in a double-layered sac of protection. This is called the pericardium. It's a membrane lining the pericardial cavity which surrounds the heart. There are 2 layers to this. The outer layer is called the parietal and the inner is called the visceral pericardium. This is the diagram of the heart. The right atrium and the left atrium receive blood from the veins and send it down into the ventricles. The tricuspid valve is on the right side between the atrium and the ventricle. It has 3 flaps to allow blood through and to prevent backflow. The bicuspid valve is on the left side between the atrium and the ventricle. The bicuspid valve have 2 flaps to prevent backflow. The pulmonary valve allows one-way flow out of the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery. The aortic valve allows one-way flow out of the left ventricle into the aortic artery. Chordae tendineae attach the papillary muscles to valves to let blood through and then snap shut without going the other way to prevent backflow. The papillary muscles attach the cusps of the atrioventricular valves to prevent inversion of the valves and stopping backflow.